You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Andor recaps here on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It is Andrew and Donovan back here once again to talk about episode 4 through 6 of Andor Season 2, the second arc as we progress another year leading up to the events of Rogue One. And it is also episode 92 overall of the pod as we creep even further, or closer, I should say, to episode 100. So that is crazy that we're almost there. Connor could not be here today. He sends his regards, and he sent his archives pick for the week, which I will say during our segment. He had then come up with his friend. We'll see him hopefully next week. But it's just going to be the two of us rocking, talking about these episodes titled Ever Been to Ghorman? ? I have friends everywhere, and what a festive evening. And what a festive evening it was. These episodes
Indeed.
were unbelievable. Let me just say that right now.
Might have my favorite episode 6, just saying it now, might have my favorite ending in all of Andor. Just
I think
saying.
it might be. And we needed it after what we got a few minutes prior to that, because I was sad. Tony Gilroy, stop doing this to me, man. I can't do it. Before we get into the usual things, though, I just wanted to share a couple things. One I just got today. The others I got a couple weeks back, but I've never been able to show off on the pod. And that's a recurring segment that I like to call Scavenger Show and Tell.
The garbage will do.
This is essentially just my excuse to show off random shit I find in flea markets or thrift stores or online on eBay or stuff, but just old Star Wars merch usually that I come across. One of them has a story to it, which I will get into. Of course, we are recording this on Saturday, May the 3rd, hopefully uploaded on May the 4th. We will see if I can get to it. So we are obviously on a Star Wars high right now. Revenge of the Sith fever is hitting us. So, of course, I had to finally get me the Revenge of the Sith visual dictionary. I like that this has a sheen cover on it, which my Phantom Menace copy doesn't have. It also looks like from this sticker, this was from a library in the state of Washington. So that's interesting. But I mean, these visual dictionaries were, of course, things that I read in like public libraries or at school when I was younger, but I never actually owned them. I did want to shout out when I was showing Don earlier, the first page I looked towards, if you can see, that is the meme of Count Dooku's signature look of superiority. I forgot it was from this one and not the Attack of the Clones one. The story behind this is I put in an order for the Revenge of the Sith and the Attack of the Clones visual dictionaries, just to complete my prequel set. I bought them off of used sellers off of Amazon, which is always a shit show. It arrived Thursday. However, we've been having extreme rainstorms this whole week. So the guy that left it on our front porch just like left it out in the storm. It didn't like notify anyone that the package was there. So it was just sitting out in the rain for like an hour. Completely rain damaged, so I was like, motherfucker. So I had to send it back. But then this came almost right away, which is nice. And this one's in a lot better shape. And we've got the Shock Trooper, which I always love, the Coruscant Guard. We've got what is Tina Madonna? I was like, I know his name, but why is it not coming to mind? 10th level, thousands of battle droids. So I will be going through that. And then these were just two things that I got at the Goodwill a couple weeks ago. The first is this Phantom Menace Episode 1 movie scrapbook from 1999. I mean, it's got like some really cool. You have this?
Well, I think I have it. I've got all the visual dictionaries, but like
this like Bravo Squadron page. It looks really cool. So this is like, I don't know if they sold it. Shout out to Jake, the whole page on Newt Gunray and the Trade Federation. I don't know where this was sold, but I saw this and they were literally selling it for $1. So I was like, oh, I'm absolutely getting this. And then speaking of a good deal, $5 for the Star Wars trilogy. These are I believe these were released in 2006. The DVDs of A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. These are the ones with the original theatrical cuts of the prequel, not the prequels, the original trilogy, which is the last time they have been released officially since ever, actually. Because every release since then has been the special editions. So this is the last wide release of the original cuts of the original trilogy. I have been looking for these for literal years. Like every time I'll go, I'll just check the DVD section. Like, do they have these releases? And they never do. I saw this out of the corner of my eye. I was like, is that what I think it is? And it sure was. Commentaries for each film by George Lucas and crew, plus the original theatrical versions of each movie, which you cannot get anywhere else besides on like VHS at this point. So I, at some point, am going to go back and rewatch those because I have not seen the original theatrical cuts of the original trilogy since probably like 2003, 2004. We're going on a long time. So that will be sick to finally do. And I've just had these on my desk for a couple weeks now, and we haven't really been able to talk about it with how busy we've been with Celebration and Andor. So finally able to share that. So I just wanted to share some cool stuff.
That's awesome, man. You've taken me on like a whole like memory lane trip with that, because I remember like around like 2005, like, well, just prior to that, prior to Revenge of the Sith coming out, there was a whole period where I didn't watch any Star Wars because I had the VHS copies of the original trilogy and Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones as a kid. Then obviously transitioned to DVDs, and there was a whole period where I just didn't have access to them. Like the closest thing I had access to of like watching Star Wars were these little free DVDs that arrived in, I don't know if it was the Daily Telegraph or like a copy of the Daily Mail or but it was a DVD by Anthony Daniels that was where he talked about the various heroes and villains in the Star Wars. It was pretty fun, and there's like a really like poignant moment where like they introduce Anakin, and they have the line where Anakin says, "Oh, I want to be a Jedi. It's all I've dreamed of doing." And then they transition to like Hayden Christensen, and it's like, oh, the feels. But eventually, leading up to Revenge of the Sith coming out in theaters, I did wind up. I think it was my dad. He bought like a DVD of the original trilogy, and as well as Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. So like I basically was like watching all the movies leading up to Revenge of the Sith. So it was a very special time.
I never owned the prequels on VHS. My VHS copies of the original trilogy were VHS tapes burned off of some airing on TV by my grandfather back when that was the thing.
Oh wow!
So that's how I was
with. I had a similar thing with Gennady Tarkovsky's Clone Wars.
Oh, that's how it was. Yeah, I didn't watch that as it was airing. So that was a later in life thing for me, but like that was my first introduction. And then shortly after Revenge of the Sith was in theaters, we bought all of them because they had the new DVD releases, and those were integral to my childhood. As I said in our last episode, there's that portion of the Utapau scene on Revenge of the Sith where I just did not remember existed for years because my DVD was so scratched up that I would always miss that part of the movie. So when I revisited it on Disney Plus, or maybe it was when they released them on Blu-ray, and I got that before The Force Awakens, but it was like really when I noticed it when it was on Disney Plus, I was like, why do I not remember this scene? And I was like, oh yeah, it's because my DVD was so fucked when I was younger that I don't remember this. But no, I just wanted to trip down memory lane there as we progress further. So if this is coming out after May the 4th, I hope you all have a wonderful May the 4th and you do something fun. I have a couple ideas in mind. But before we get into Andor, we also have another fun thing we like to do, our little segment we like to call the Jedi Archives.
Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
And if you're new here, this is essentially our podcast Hall of Fame segment. What we do is we each nominate something Star Wars adjacent, and I'm using adjacent very lightly this week because of what Connor's nomination was last week. And we can vote. Right, you, the viewers, decide who goes in or what goes in to the archives this week. Donovan, I regret to inform you that your bid for the Lucasfilm anniversary poster was shut down because our boy Brasso is the newest inductee into the archives. R.I.P., buddy. We miss you. Our worst.
That seems an acceptable loss.
I know, but I'm still like, our worst fears of our tweet being discovered by Philadelphia Phillies Twitter and leading to Connor winning did not happen. So 0% of the archives vote went for Connor's pick, which normally we start with the winner of this previous week's segment will put their vote up or their nomination up for the week. I'm actually going to read out Connor's first because it does not interfere with what I had planned for this week. He said, and I quote, let me know how the archives vote goes. And this is me saying to nominate Phillies legend Bryce Harper once again. So we're having a repeat nomination this week. This is all because, of course, according to him, the Phillies had I think an at-bat intro that parodied the Star Wars opening crawl. And because of that, he nominated their star player, Bryce Harper, for those who are fans of baseball. So we'll see if the second week has any more momentum than last week. But I appreciate the straightforwardness and the dedication to the bit, Connor. As for my nomination this week, I was debating. I was like, do I go for another dead Andor character this week? And I was really debating on it because I love Cinta so much. However, I'm going to go with something different. And it might cost me the vote this week. However, these scenes have been going around, making the rounds on Twitter and Instagram this week, as they often do every couple of years, because of the re-release of Revenge of the Sith. And I think it ties into Andor perfectly. I am nominating the Delegation of 2000 deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith for the archives this week. For those unaware, these are scenes that really shouldn't have been deleted from Revenge of the Sith because it's like Padme's own plot unrelated to Anakin in the movie that is just not there. And it's Padme, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, a bunch of other senators who it's essentially the early beginnings of the Rebel Alliance, which again, I don't know why they cut that from the movie. But it's them meeting together, discussing Palpatine's growing power, the threat of, is he going to give up the powers at the end of the Clone Wars? And they just get together. And it's so, what I love is it's made up of a lot of what were previously part of his loyalists during Attack of the Clones. And now they're like, well, this Palpatine guy, he's been our friend, he's been our ally, but can we really trust him? We don't like the way that we see this going. And then, of course, it gets shot down by the formation of the Empire. But I've always been very fascinated by these scenes, and if you want to watch them, they are fully shot, edited, completed scenes. They've been available on the prequel DVDs. They've been available there. I think they're all available on Disney Plus as well, and you can easily watch them on YouTube. But this went viral again, at least in my circles on Instagram earlier in the week, and I was just like, yep, I'm nominating these.
Same. That's a good pick as well.
I know Connor talked about it would have been cool to finally reincorporate them into the movie during the re-release of Revenge of the Sith. I've been advocating for that for years. I understand this is probably a George thing where it's like, hey, any additions to these movies, it's like, okay, whatever I left you with is what I want these to be going forward. And it's just like, I feel like unless George directly went to Kathleen Kennedy or Lucasfilm and was like, hey, can you add this to the movie? they would do that. But this has been made canon in several reference books, and in, I believe, Reign of the Empire, the new one that just came out, the new book by Alexander Freed. Free Wikipedia search. So that is my nomination this week, and I think it just fits with Andor because Mon Mothma's current storyline and the reintroduction of Bail Organa this week. I was like, let me put in a lost story from one of my favorite Star Wars movies that I think would be really cool to get acknowledged. And it's always been something that's really fascinated me. So that's my long-winded pick this week. Donovan, what do you have for us this week?
Well, see, I could be kind of a bastard here and nominate Cinta, but what I will do instead, out of sense of respect here, I'm going to go with my original pick here, and that is Pinewood Studios. Because I've been spending a lot of time this week, reading the Secrets from the Set of Andor articles that go out on StarWars.com, which, if any of you listening haven't read those articles, definitely check them out. The trivia on there is amazing. One of my favorites from the previous week was that the Andor team grew a whole field of ancient rye for the scenes on Mina Rao, and then during in Oxfordshire in England, and then harvested them during the actors' strikes and packaged them in polystyrene so they could then transport them to Pinewood on the 007 stage to film the rest of the scenes. It's just that's great. But I'm nominating Pinewood this week because obviously this arc is our introduction to Ghorman, the planet Ghorman, and when Syril first steps out onto the main plaza, the main Ghorman plaza, my first thought was, I wonder where they went location shooting for this, because this is massive. There's no way this is a set. Turns out it was a set. It's so it's the level of detail that goes into that kind of set, and the amount of it's so spacious, it's so huge. It just gives the planet this sense of scale that, as you said last week, we don't always get in other Star Wars Disney Plus projects. Like the scale of Ghorman, it feels so huge and very real and very distinct from other planets we've seen before, and a lot of that is thanks to the set design at Pinewood. So and Pinewood obviously has been host to other Star Wars sets as well. In fact, the set they used was the lot they used was the same as the ones they used for the Kessel clearing in Solo. It also was used for, I believe, Force Awakens, other movies as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't Force Awakens shot in Pinewood?
Yeah, and there's also a scene later on in the streets that was also used to film Rey and Kylo Ren's duel on board the second Death Star in Rise of Skywalker. So Pinewood has a lot of history with Star Wars, especially with Andor currently. So yeah, it felt right to kind of shout that out.
I really like that pick. Those are two really cool picks that you can vote for this week. So. Just to recap, our nominations this week from myself are the Delegation of 2000. From Donovan is Pinewood Studios, and from Connor it's Bryce Harper again. So shortly after this episode drops, if I remember to do it this week because I forgot last week, go ahead and check out our social media. I will put a poll up, and you guys can decide on who goes in to our Jedi archives this week. Now we can get into Andor, and I just want to say I have Disney Plus open right now because I was going to watch something after this. And the banner for Andor is the scene of Cassian and Bix just touching hands right now. How dare you, first of all? Trying to get me in my feels here while we're recording. But speaking of Cassian and Bix, we start off, we get the Andor intro. We get, again, which I love that this is a recurring thing now, of the 1 year later timestamp marked by the bells of the Ferrix timekeeper, which I think is just great. I think it's a great way to showcase and to symbolize the passage of time in this season. As I'm starting to get a bit used to how these arcs are told and how we're experiencing them. Because again, like I mentioned last week, because each arc takes place in that year of the timeline as we progress further to Rogue One, I kind of expected them to be broader and take place over many months kind of really showing the events of that year. However, they seem, at least these first two, seem to be very contained within a couple days. This one was probably maybe a week at most. But I like it. I like how it's turning out. It makes these arcs feel more self-focused and contained, and it makes the emotional impact of them feel or hit a lot harder. We start on Coruscant, and immediately shipper Andrew Brain is just immediately going off because Bix is having recurring nightmares about Dr. Gorst still, and we see that her and Cassian in the same bed. She gets out of bed. They're living together now on Coruscant. And I'm just like, oh my God, are they together? Did they finally do it? But I loved this early scene. One, I love the look of their apartment. I love like how it looks on the Coruscant nightlight. Looked very Blade Runner-y. And I love the what I will affectionately refer to as the Luthen signal that keeps going off further downtown whenever they need Cassian on a mission. I just thought that was great. But I loved this opening scene because we really get to see just how they've changed within this year. We obviously knew that Bix would be going through it a bit more after what happened last week's set of episodes, and of course the continued trauma of Dr. Gorst. I'm hoping that the ending of this arc is Bix's way forward. I hope, because I have a horrible theory about what's going to happen next week that I hope does not come true. But I just really liked this opening scene, and getting to see more of them, and eventually that argument they had when we find out some brief details about a past mission or a recent mission that had happened, because now they are full on both operatives for Luthen, and it seemed as though Cassian killed someone for an Imperial trooper for seeing Bix's face, and Bix is not too pleased over it because Cassian is really struggling with not wanting to lose Bix again, and the fear of loss immediately sets off Star Wars red flags in all of us.
Exactly. I'm also going to
independent and like knowing that, hey, she can do this stuff on her own. She can go on these missions on her own. She doesn't need Cassian being so paranoid all the time. And we really see that in a lot of points in this arc, especially that little scene afterwards where they're just buying groceries and Cassian's just like freaking the fuck out the whole time.
I loved that. I loved that scene where they go into like the Coruscant bodega and there's like there's all the shops, all the stuff, all the like products and stuff. That's such a like kind of innocuous thing to be doing in Star Wars, and to see like the Star Wars version of like bodega or a corner shop was really neat with all like the products and stuff that they have there. I am also going to agree with you that opening scene was great. You know, you got some subtle confirmations of like Cassian and Bix's relationship and where how they've progressed. I kind of assumed that they were there the prior year because of the fact that Cassian was living with them. But you have that whole scene with Dr. Gorst which immediately like starts to hint at like that past mission, you know, that you actually see the soldier, lying there dead next to Dr. Gorst. And it's so eerie and unsettling. I immediately knew it was a dream, of course, because Gorst is very personal. He talks very personally to Bix, and Cassian is like he knows them because this is just Bix's nightmare vision of him, which is so interesting considering like the ending, very fitting. But I again, the apartment, really cool as well. I also liked the detail that they actually used the volume to create the Coruscant backdrop around the apartment. And they used, it's just really great use of like both practical set work and the volume to like just blend together the kind of fantastical Star Wars thing. And the fact that they're on Coruscant was maddening to me, because it's like they're right there. They're right under the ISB and the Emperor's and the Empire's nose, and they have no idea. And it definitely lends towards Cassian's sense of paranoia, I think, because I think what you said about Cassian being scared of losing Bix, it's very true. And it also kind of like sets up some of his like conflict in the later arc, like when we shift towards Ghorman.
Definitely. You mentioned them being like right under the ISB's nose and them not knowing. I was really kind of hoping that we were going to get a scene in one of these episodes where Cassian either knowingly or unknowingly reunites and meets with Dedra or Syril again. I really thought it was going to happen on Ghorman.
It's like what have you seen the Umbrella Academy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the meme of like the two characters like going by in the cars, like going. That's Cassian and Syril. It's like
really.
It's the kind of thing where I actually don't think Cassian knows what Syril looks like, though, because he's never actually seen Cyril's face. He's only seen the back of Cyril's head. I'm pretty sure. But I did find like the whole thing, like when Cassian is, just to jump ahead, but when Cassian is talking to the Ghorman front and they mention having a spy, I was like, oh, are they going to mention Syril? And I know that it made sense that they didn't mention him because they obviously had to keep their asset hidden. But I just would have found it really funny if they had mentioned Cyril's name and Cassian had immediately gone, "No, don't trust him. He's a narc. He's the biggest narc there is."
This dude literally loves the Empire so much, man. It's crazy. Speaking of...
No, go on.
I was going to say, speaking of Syril, last week I said was my, like, Danny DeVito, like, I get it meme moment for me with Cyril's character. Yeah. This continued this week, but he gave me hope. He went against Hawkeye's biggest advice of please don't give me hope. And he gave me hope because the way this episode's starting off, he's on a space FaceTime with Edie, talking about Edie's giving the Imperial propaganda about the Ghormans that we were hinting that, or Krennic hinted that they were going to plant seeds in throughout the Empire last week, which I like. He's like, don't to see.
You watch too much. You watch too much Fox News. Imperial News.
Yeah, it's like, oh, whoops, hold on. Space Sean Andy's over here talking to Edie, which again totally makes sense that she's one of those, feeding the Imperial propaganda by the handful kind of people. I love that she's still.
Syril, have you heard? They're making the space M&Ms less sexy.
Oh, goddamn space M&Ms! Stop it. But I love that she's like still bringing up Uncle Harlow too, even though like we know that the dude's not what Edie was hyping him up to be. It's like, yeah, Uncle Harlow said that the Ghormans suck, and Cyril's like, oh, they're good people as he's on his fancy new desk job at the Bureau of Standards. We see his apartment earlier. He's got those spider tourist gifts like all over the apartment. Yeah, I was gonna say like, Syril. I was gonna make a meme. It was like Cyril's apartment by the end of Andor season 2, and it's just flooded with the spider toys because he keeps getting so many of them.
I don't want another spider.
But we get like him like fully like what I assumed was him. Like, are we seeing the Syril Karn defection arc play out? And I knew Emily from Kessel Run Relay was freaking out as this episode was going because like, is it happening? Is it happening? But it's all him playing super spy and loving every minute of it, trying to see if his apartment was broken into by doing that little thing with the string, and then knowing that his office had been bugged by the Ghorman front, so he is saying all these things so they would invite him to their meeting or their
and that was
town hall or whatever
immediately.
It was.
That was immediately when alarm bells started going off in my head because like you said, I was watching it going, wait, he seems weirdly kind of defensive of the Ghorman, and then and then it cut to them listening in, and it just Dedra's words from the first arc just immediately flashed in my head, and I was like, oh no, this is the plan to get Syril to ingratiate with the Ghorman front. I do think, though, and this is the interesting thing, because they do spend a lot of time with the Ghorman front and fleshing out the individual like members of it. I do wonder if Syril, because he is going to be spending a year with these people, basically. By the next arc, he will have been there for a year. I do wonder if this could maybe shift him. I do wonder if maybe him getting attached to these
Star
people.
Wars Explained did say, like, I can't imagine how he goes to this meeting, witnesses these rebel things, witnesses the Ghorman heist go down, and not feel just a little bit of, I mean, these people do have a point. Like, but this man literally glazes the Empire so hard that maybe he doesn't. Like literally him being told good job by Partigaz is him being like, it's the greatest moment of my life, which was I love that.
If I say this is the greatest moment of my life, will that ruin things?
But like as this episode was
do we also think Dedra is like kind of just Dedra doesn't really feel anything for him? Because I almost wondered when she said, "Oh, it's really good that you're happy." I almost wonder if she has been going along with this relationship purely because Syril does what she says and she can use him as an asset to get her objectives accomplished.
I think it's evolving into that. I don't know if it's fully that, because when we see them in the first arc, it seemed fairly healthy, which was weird for these two characters where we know there's nothing healthy about either of them. And that's why I was so like fascinated by it. I'm like, these are two of the weirdest fucking monsters ever.
We're either gonna go
and then together.
like,
why are they like perfect sitcom couple? Like it's weird.
They really
but then
are.
This one, Dedra seems so straight up business, and it's like, oh, you can only be here for an hour, and it's like, oh, turn off the lights. On. Well, I know what's happening here. But like,
and he seemed kind of weirdly turned on by the fact that he's like, can't believe you had me followed.
Yeah, you had me followed.
This man, more often?
I've never seen this man enjoy being spied on more than Syril Karn, because he like when he like sees that the Ghorman rebels are following him, and he realizes his apartment's been broken into. Like you could just see the joy on his face. Like
he's like,
people are following me.
I'm such an important little boy.
Can you believe it? It's
I'm
just
such
like,
an important little boy now.
I gotta say, if my house was ever broken into, my first reaction wouldn't be, "Oh man, that's really cool that someone would think to rob me of all people." Like I just be like, "No, like what's going on here?" Yeah, like, but I did find it interesting when we first got the glimpse of Syril in this arc that like Dedra, even though we know she's running Ghorman, that she wasn't there with him. And I did find like the lengths he had to go to even get that video call out to Dedra, go behind the Imperial guards at the Bureau of Standards to just get that quick video message to Dedra. And that's when we do get the reveal that, yeah, he is being a little sneaky little spy dude. But he had me in the first half, not going to lie. Like I thought, like, are we seeing the beginning of Syril Karn? But no,
we're either gonna spend the next
not
week.
Enough to turn him.
We're either gonna spend the next week like going, oh my god, he actually turned, or you little bastard. Like we're gonna be like, it's gonna go. The pendulum is gonna swing one way or the other with Syril. People are gonna finally decide whether or not they totally hate him for still sticking with the Empire after whatever the Ghorman massacre is, or we're gonna kind of like side with him basically for finally snapping free of the Imperial propaganda. Speaking of the Ghorman massacre, I kind of wanted to like shout out something that really surprised me, and that was the fact that they talked about the Tarkin massacre, which was crazy. And again, it's really cool. It harkened back to like what we discussed in like the first
arc last week.
Yeah, like the first arc in season 1, it harkens back to that, where rather than just like erasing the original kind of like backstory that was devised for Cassian, Tony Gilroy thought, how do I incorporate this into the story I'm going to tell? And he's done the same thing again with the Ghorman massacre. Like the Tarkin thing was its own separate event that the characters on Ghorman went through and experienced. You get that really visceral. He keeps getting referenced multiple times, and then we finally get a very visceral retelling of it to Cassian by the hotel clerk who escorts him to his room. It's very affecting, and it was really well done, and I obviously appreciated the reference, but I also couldn't help thinking, oh god, if that's not the Ghorman massacre, what the hell is going to happen next week? Like, how many people are going to die in
Imperial cruiser on 500 protesters isn't the massacre? Next week's going to be tough. And that's why I'm like hesitant that my theory about my worst case scenario for next week isn't going to happen. Because I feel like next week we're going to get the big massacre, and I feel like that's when we introduce K2, because I can't imagine that they're just going to save K2 for the last 3 episodes with how much they've been hyping it. So I feel like if
it looks like he's on Coruscant.
Okay, well that's cool. I didn't.
Well, because there's
I
that
didn't
shot
pick
of him
up
on the
that.
walkway, so I could imagine him showing up. Like my main instinct with the Ghorman massacre is that that's going to be the first episode, and then, or maybe the second, and then like the rest of the arc is getting Mon Mothma off Coruscant. So maybe that's how Cassian and Bix enter the scene. Really, they wind up having to extract Mon Mothma from Coruscant, along with like her aide, who I didn't realize that the guy following her around during the Senate meetings is the guy who escapes Coruscant with her in Rebels. That's really cool.
That is a really cool detail. But remember, there's no Easter eggs in this show, and Tony Gilroy isn't a Star Wars fan. The one thing that I thought, and this is how bad this fandom and this discourse has become at points, because there was a little scene at the very introduction of Ghorman that I was like, is this gonna be the fake outrage moment of the week? And that's when they were doing like the B-roll or the introduction shots to Ghorman, and you see like what just looked like regular birds.
Yeah, the pigeons.
I thought this week it was gonna be, oh my god, there's just bird. You're telling me there's just birds? What is the Disney's ruining Star Wars?
And they
this week's bricks.
And they had it covered. Like they immediately like had a close up of the pigeons just to show you. Yeah, no, they're not just any pigeons. These are Ghorman pigeons. They've got they're really tall and they got the weird like heightened breasts and stuff. It's just very, very funny. I as someone who sees a lot of pigeons living in England, I really that scene really worked for me.
I immediately was like, oh no, because like there are just certain things where I'm like, we've had really dumb moments. We had a whole argument about fire in a sci-fi show.
Oh yeah. Someone is out there very eager to try and do their version of like the Starbucks coffee cup in Game of Thrones.
They want it to happen. It's not going to happen.
I mean, technically, we already had that happen though with Gene's guy, and and the fandom embraced it, which is great.
Yeah, because that show wasn't directed by a woman; it didn't have gay people in it.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Star Wars goofs, just since we're on that, Star Wars, that's a weird thing with Star Wars, like with goofs like that, they've always kind of been embraced by the actual fandom. Like, one of the biggest well-known goofs is the Stormtrooper hitting his head on the door. And now that's not only like being canonized with the clunk sound effect.
It's a recurring gag.
It's a recurring gag, and it works every time, and it always works because of the fact that it started as a goof, and the creators, the writers, George Lucas, they all leaned into it. They had a little bit of fun with it. That can happen. It's great when you can have fun with Star Wars. It's great when you
can have fun with it and just enjoy it, and like that's what I kind of miss. Like, yes, even though a lot of the humor surrounding like the mid 2000s in Star Wars with like the prequels and stuff like isn't the dominant opinion anymore. It like looking back like does feel kind of forced. Stuff like the Robot Chicken parodies and the Family Guy parodies, like the fact that like George Lucas or like characters or like Ahmed Best and like stuff like that were like directly involved in them and supported them and lifted them up. Like, it made it feel like, yeah, we can poke fun of our own universe. It's fine. Like, we know we're a big enough franchise to where we can do that. And, like, they do that with the MCU, but they are, like, not willing to do that with Star Wars right now. Both, like, as a fandom and as a company as a whole. Like, the Lego specials are kind of that, but not, like, fully. Because they have some fun with it. They lean into it, but, like, they haven't been, like, except for like the one where Palpatine was like, "Oh, it would be silly if I were to like die and then come back again and then die again." Like it just like you only get like it every now and then. So like if they were to like if Gene's guy were to show up in the Lego specials, I'd be like, okay,
that would be great.
This is amazing.
Incidentally, like, I can see the Seth MacFarlane version of Palpatine rapping to Cypress Hill a lot.
Oh, no.
Coming out the slums, it's the hoodlums.
Stormtrooper. What a scene.
The tangent we have just gone on.
Yeah, I know. Because I was talking about a thing that wasn't even a goof, and I was like, this is what we do here on Star Wars Podcast. Let me bring the mood down by just jumping ahead to what this awful theory I've developed in my head.
Oh, no.
So we end the first arc, and almost like in a hollow way, like a just dumb, stupid way, we lose Brasso. The second arc, end of the second arc, very similar, like needless death, we lose Cinta. We know that Cassian, I hate saying this, but we know that by Rogue One, Cassian needs to be at a point where he can, over the course of the movie, fall in love with Jyn Erso. We also know that at this point, he is so in love with and attached to Bix that he can't like let her leave his side, basically. So, do we think Bix dies in the next arc because it would feel so close to Rogue One to have it happen in the last arc? I was actually thinking before Andor season 2 started that she was going to live through the series. And I still kind of hope she does. But at the point we're at right now with Cassian's character, I just like it would kind of feel like if Solo happened and like with how like down bad Han is for Kira in that movie, it would kind of feel like if that happened like a year before The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah,
and then like, oh well, you know, there's Kira thing, but now there's Leia. Well, I'm more like, how could they? Could it be like, oh, we can't be together for your safety, and you're going to need to be somewhere else, or is Tony Gilroy going to rip our hearts out and kill Bix? And I hope it's not that.
I'm very scared.
I am, and I would feel a little upset depending on how they pull it off, because like a valid critique of this arc was they finally get the full confirmation that Vel and Cinta are like, there's no subtext about it, bros. Like it is full on kiss, and they finally make up, and it's been, we assume, years since they had seen each other or had this conversation, maybe even since Ferrex. And then 10 minutes later, they kill Cinta.
Yeah.
I am very worried that we finally get this awesome moment for Bix at the end of this arc. And then she finally is free, and she has her vindication of the trauma that Dr. Gorst has given to her, and then they kill her in the next arc. I hope they don't do that for that specific reason. I hope that they give us a reason of why Bix is not in Cassian's life in that way by the time of Rogue One. And maybe that can be told in the last arc. And I'm hoping that's the case, because it really does seem like she's the second lead in the season, as opposed to Mon. But I'm worried, man, because it feels like this was such a great Bix arc.
Yeah.
And we're finally in this could be it for this character. Like things are looking up. She got her vindication. But we know Cassian's got to be at this point by Rogue One. So what is going to happen? And I just feel like if it were to happen, because we know from what Tony Gilroy has told us, we know that the season literally ends right as Cassian's getting to the Ring of Kafrene at the beginning of Rogue One. So if, like, say, Bix is to die in the last episode, I just don't think that man would be like, this girl I've been seeing for years just died. But this Jyn Erso, though, like, I just don't feel like that's realistic.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
No, see, I agree with you there, where I am very concerned for Bix.
Especially now that they've full on been like, they are in a relationship, they are in love.
Now that they've taken that step, now that they've done that, and now that they've resolved her ongoing trauma arc, unless it spills into the next arc, really showing that, you know, she still obviously has to struggle with some stuff, even though he's gone. But now, yes, can't wait to talk about that. But like on this note, I have a little bit of hope still that she could make it out. I said the same thing about Jecki, and look what happened there. But still, Still, there is that scene later on where Cassian and Luthen are talking, and Luthen is basically saying that, Bix, Cassian's attachment to Bix is a problem for him, where it's making him cautious. He's willing to protect her at any cost, killing that Imperial because he saw Bix's face. But it's also leading him to be cautious with things like Ghorman. He's not fully committed to the rebellion because of his relationship to Bix. So maybe something could happen in the next arc that actually finally means that Cassian makes the decision to maybe have Bix sent away, perhaps have her put protected and put far away so she cannot be harmed, basically, or so he can commit fully to the rebellion. Maybe something happens to convince Cassian, no, I need to be all in with the rebellion. I need to be just fully committed to this because she'll never be safe unless I am just unquestioningly following the will of the rebellion. So there is a possibility there, and maybe we'll see that play out somewhat, especially with K2 potentially appearing next arc, which I hope that's the case. I would love for Alan Tudyk to at least be in half of the season and not just the final arc, like you said. Mm-hmm. But yeah, given the fact that we have lost my
especially
two
now
favorite...
that we don't have B2, I would like some needed droid.
Dude's still on Mina Rao, pining after Cassian. It's this, it hurts. But given that we have lost not one, but two of my favorite rebels, favorite side characters in Andor now, week after week, I am very concerned that week 3 will mark the loss of Bix. There is another character, though, that could fill that void, however, and that's Wilmon, because this dude definitely went down a bit of an extreme path.
I thought we were going to lose him in this arc with the way it was going, which we will get into. I guess we can segue into that now, but I real quickly did want to point out, and we can get into this later, that's definitely been a problem with Cassian's commitment and dedication to the rebellion, as he is also kind of handicapped by his care for Bix. It's also, as we've seen, a harm for how Luthen views his associates. Because he is so dead set on, he wants to keep Vel and Cinta apart from each other. He wants Cassian and Bix to be apart, or at least for Bix to be he wants her to be healthy so she can be dedicated to the cause.
Yeah, so she can do missions, not necessarily for her own well-being. And that is this arc really gets into Luthen.
And is that the good thing? Because at the same time, Luthen is almost, even though it's not the same as Cassian and Bix, he has that dynamic with Kleya, where he has that one person that he trusts with his life.
Yeah.
Everything. So it's you can do this, but these other two can't. That's a little bit hypocritical there, Luthen.
It's like the Kiadi Mundi to Anakin when it comes to you can't have attachments.
Oh yeah.
I can have a whole host of attachments if you read Legends.
Whole host of attachments. Exactly. But we can segue into Wilmon real quick. Because I was okay, so he's not on Coruscant with Bix and Cassian. So where is he? And he's been shipped off to be with Saw Gerrera's Partisans, which
on Dakar,
which I saw pop up. I'm a Force Awakens reference in our year of our Lord 2025. We are so back.
I have always loved Dakar as a location because of the real life story behind it. The fact that it's at Greenham Common Air Base in the UK, and that's where a bunch of women famously protested the installation of nuclear weapons there. It's just they've turned a real life place of rebellion into a rebel base in Star Wars. That's just really cool. And it was great seeing it here again. I love that they actually went back there to film and stuff. And seeing Saw's Partisans there did feel a bit eerie almost because of just how much that group shot of them all. They all look so unhinged. I think they're all pumping the Rhydonium.
They are all I think this might have been the best depiction of, these Partisans aren't the most sane individuals. They are creepy. And I love that Tony Gilroy said that is what Saw was huffing in Rogue One now. Someone suggested, why don't we make this Rhydonium thing? Why don't we introduce it to Saw? And he's that's it. He's cooking with gas now, literally. But there's something about...
that's the good stuff.
There's something about Forrest Whitaker's delivery as Saw where I have always run the fine line of, do I love this or do I hate this? And sometimes even in like same episode.
Lies! Deceptions!
Didn't have that. We didn't have a moment like that, but like I'm like, this is we did at the end of episode.
We had at the end of episode 2. Come on.
Breathe
the right wind, boy. Let it run wild.
There's just again, and again, I'm looking at a Black Series of Saw Gerrera right now. I like the character. He pissed me off a little bit at the end of Bad Batch season 2. We had the discussion on here.
Like, you know what? I was trying really hard not to hold it against him, but it's still there a little bit. I'm like,
a little bit,
motherfucker, Tech is dead.
This is so much like part of big partisan energy here. I do love though that. Hey, how do we link the sequel trilogy closer to the original trilogy? Hey, Dakar was also a former partisan rebel base as opposed to just the resistance. I think that's cool, and I think it's cool that, hey, we can set up our base here because it was a old rebel base, and that might have been established in some other canon sources prior, but this is like the first time they've like explicitly used it, and I think using sequel trilogy planets to further the stories of prior stories to me is an awesome thing, because hey, you have this whole trilogy of things. A big critique of it is, hey, why is it so like on its own compared to like a lot of the other stuff? Why isn't there further connections, especially to the prequel era? You can blame J.J. Abrams for that one, but you know, especially to the prequel era. And I like that they're doing stuff like this for just like, again, the average person watching Andor, they're going to see that. They're going to be like, oh, cool, new planet. But like us, is going to be like, Dakar as in the Force Awakens base? Like, it's the equivalent of the Yavin 4 reveal at the end of episode 2, which I was just like,
still so good.
Dr. Yavin! Speaking of Yavin, this is about the 5th tangent of the episode. I promise I will be quick. I did my annual May the 4th Lego haul order so I could get the bonuses this year. And I was debating. I was like, do I go all in on the Jango Fett Slave one?
Ooh.
Or, because it was like anything over that, like a certain amount, you would get the Camino clone facility, which I wanted. I was like, I'm getting the Andor U-Wing. I'm getting Kylo's command shuttle. So I'm like, there's 2 right there. So do I get the Jango, or do I finally get the Yavin 4 set that I've wanted for a while?
Ooh.
I go on the Lego site. It says product retired. I'm like, motherfucker, that's literally at my Target right now. What do you mean product retired? So I couldn't order it. So I'll have to. I was like, I was waiting for a price drop for years. Hopefully it happens. But you know, sadly, I don't think we're living in a world right now where price drops are going to be a thing for the next 4 years. So we shall see. Anyways, tangent
Taxation of trade routes to outlying systems is in dispute.
Saw Gerrera has Wilmon train one of our partisan characters, Pluty, which is such a Saw Gerrera team name. Pluty, you're going to do just
I need you to talk to 2 tubes.
Is the only one that knows how to work this Rhydonium extractor. I don't remember if that was hinted at in prior episodes, but it was like, oh yeah, someone taught me. It's like, who taught you? And it's just like, okay,
I assume it was his dad. I need to rewatch like
I was assuming it's Cassian, but it was probably his father. Because I feel like I gotta rewatch Rogue One. But I feel like when Saw and Cassian are together on Jeddah, Saw does not recognize Cassian.
Well, they haven't met currently.
They haven't met currently.
There's no indication that they will meet, really, because
I think if Wilmon was like, oh, it's my buddy Cassian, then he might know who that is going into Rogue One, and like that's gonna create maybe some questions, like how after the Clone Wars, Anakin's my powers have met since the last time we met. Count like what, like a week ago? Like we fought all the time, man.
I've got to mention as well with like these scenes with like Saw and Wilmon. It was really interesting because we also again saw a lot of Saw's paranoia. Like you like the fact that he just talked about killing Wilmon, like he was just going to kill Wilmon immediately. That really alarmed me. I was like, oh, I've been wanting to see a little bit more of this unhinged Saw for a while, and we definitely got it here. Like,
especially because it seems like this was a prearranged deal between Saw and Luthen, and for him to just immediately be like, yeah, we're not returning him.
Yeah, and now, it's the chilling, so chilling when Pluty says, "Oh, you know, what about the people who sent him? Accidents happen." It's like, that was chilling, man. It's like, dude, that is Empire shit. What are you doing? But it felt very in character for Saw, and that's the scene in the second episode where, you know, he pulls the blaster on Wilmon. I thought for sure he was done for. Like, because I have captions on when I watch these episodes, and the fact that his dialogue cut off, I thought, oh no, he's going to shoot him. He's going to shoot him, and then fucking Pluty gets it in the head instead, and just like falls to the floor.
Are you certain he can, or you know he can?
Yeah,
I'll work it,
traitor.
And that is my question. I guess we can jump ahead and just talk about the whole Saw plot here. Because he was like, oh, yeah, Pluty's been feeding secrets to the Empire. And then Tutu was like, oh, it's right here.
Here's the proof.
Do you think he actually did, or do you think they were just making shit up?
I mean, it's the kind of thing where both is plausible. Like, Saw is so paranoid and so unhinged as a rebel that I could see him doing either thing. I could see him just being paranoid enough to shoot him, and oh look, it turns out he was an Imperial spy, but also there's inventing a reason.
Exactly, and Pluty is so dead set on, okay, which one do I need to do? Which one do I need to master so I can focus on the mission? Is that his way of saying, which one do we need to do so I can tell the Empire where to go to stop the Rhydonium heist?
That is the thing that has me leaning a little bit towards, oh, he really was an Imperial spy. The fact that he was very insistent that Saw tell him at least one location, supposedly to quell his anxiety. That kind of made me think, oh, like after the fact, I was like, yeah, that actually does seem a bit plausible. But yeah, that whole scene was brilliantly handled, and we got that great. And we finally realized that Pluty is the person in the trailer who's like dead on the floor while the X-wings all take off, which led to an awesome wing-mounted shot of the X-wings.
That was so sick. I thought we were going full Starfighter battle in that perspective. I'm like, dude, this is sick.
Oh, imagine if that is, we use those angles for Star Wars Starfighter, and like that, we have a whole space battle with that. Oh.
But then, the Rhydonium, she's my sister. It's like, oh.
She's my sister, Rhydo, and she loves me.
That hits so much harder after Clone Wars.
And he mentioned Onderon as well, the Onderon jungle, which was really cool.
Prison camp where my clothes disintegrated. And it's like, what is going on here?
200 men.
Breathe it in. Breathe in the freedom. I'm like, oh, I both love and hate you at the same time.
We'll all be dead before the Republic is back. And yet...
Yep.
Here we are.
And yet, I've seen Rogue One. It's true.
Yeah, it's really gets at the whole idea of like these unsung rebels who don't get the kind of plaudits that Luke, Han, and Leia, and Chewie, and the other more well-known characters in Star Wars often get in the history of that universe. They're the ones who will die and won't see. Like Luthen says, you know, the ego that started this fight will never have a something. Well, I can't remember the full line, but it's basically I will never be able to see a sunrise, basically. And it's you know, it's a really good scene again, and it's so believable that Wilmon, of all of the Ferret's cast, is the one that would be seduced by Saw's speech about the Rhydonium and the feeling, the itch of like wanting to explode and run wild against the Empire. Like, you know, especially when he says, you know,
I burned my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
But there's also the line where Saw says to him about them being unloved, and that made me think of last week where, you know, he basically potentially met the love of his life on Mina Rao, and he's never going to see her again. You know, he had to leave her behind for her safety and his, and he's never going to see her again, which, again, that could be foreshadowing a little bit for Cassian, because we've seen how Wilmon becomes reckless, and he knows she's still alive. He could potentially find her, but he thinks that's impossible. So I do think... Again, there's a possibility for Bix to be alive, but as for Wilmon, I would not be shocked if the Partisans join the Ghorman front in the next arc and have some level of participation in what turns into the Ghorman massacre. I could see that happening because if I remember correctly, there's a line about Dedra saying about, like, you know, them wanting to draw in other rebel factions by having the Ghorman be more confident and more like aggressive in their like rebellion tactics. So I could see Saw getting involved with them and it going really badly for both the Ghorman front and the Partisans, to the point where Wilmon is killed he's one of the statistics maybe during the Ghorman massacre. I could see that happening.
I could.
It would be, yeah,
I really could. I think you might be onto something there, and it just I feel like this was a good way of like kind of subverting our expectations this episode, because I didn't think when we ended last week, I certainly didn't think, Wilmon is going to be with Saw Gerrera now. Like, I just didn't think that was going to be where they were going. Which is why I was kind of surprised that he was, one, in these episodes, Saw, and then two, that this is where the direction went for Wilmon's character. But I think him like becoming like a weird protege of Saw and potentially getting as deep into it as he is, leading to his death, I think would be a really cool, unexpected character development for the little guy.
He's the one who built the bomb at the end of season 1. After all, he's the one who was the closest to exploding out of all of the ferret scars. So, looking back, the trajectory makes a lot of sense. It's just it was just handled really well, and so it's unexpected. But yeah, that's I'm concerned for Wilmon. He's got the like death mark on his head for me. I also think we should also mention the Ghorman now, like the scenes with because again, I am so impressed with how they brought this planet to life. We've heard about it for years. Kind of like with Chandrila, it's been a planet that's been floated in different Star Wars continuities for years now, as far back as Legends, and now with like Rebels and stuff. And to finally get like a whole, not just a look for the planet, but also the whole culture and everything is great. I can't believe they use the phonetics of the French language to basically construct two separate Ghorman languages. There's like Higor and Dixian.
Was that a Star Wars language they made up, or was that them just speaking French?
So it's another thing of like another like thing on the Secrets from the Set of Andor thing, where they used the phonetics of French language to construct the Gore language, and they did two separate languages, Higor and Dixian, which is also called Logor, and they're both named after like two people who worked on the production of Andor season 2. It's so good, and like the level of detail they've gone into to like really make this planet feel lived in and have a sense of culture separate from what we have seen before in Star Wars. That was great. And I also love that they cast a lot of French actors as well, just to lend it a little more authenticity. It just had a really different kind of vibe, Ghorman. I'm like to the point where I'm already sad that we're going to see a lot of its population die.
I'm not going to be sad about one person. We will get to that.
Should we say it together, Andrew? Should we say it together?
Fuck Sam. Fucking Sam.
Sam.
God.
Fucking Tim.
We got our moment. We got our fucking Tim moments, and it was in the worst way possible.
At what cost?
At what cost?
But yeah, no, I loved this town hall scene. I love it. It was a great way of introducing us to a lot of the rebel leaders, specifically. Why am I forgetting his name? The main leader of the Ghorman front. And just I love it. Like, it felt like a very real thing. Like, you would see a town hall like this where the citizens are voicing their grievances.
I love that.
Even though we know that like it's not going to go anywhere because the Empire isn't going to listen to any of that, and they're going to build this armory regardless. Because their whole issue is that ever since that meeting with Krennic last arc, the Empire has started building an armory in the middle of the town, right by the site of the original Tarkin massacre, which is pissing off a lot of people. And you're starting to see the growing formation of the Ghorman front. The one thing that is very apparent throughout these episodes is a growing theme throughout this season of this rebel sector is just it's not fully there. Very similar to the Maya Pai Brigade last week. It's not necessarily a disorganization thing. It's just they are not ready for this.
Yeah.
Whether it's they're too trusting, which Cassian exploits and basically throws right in the one girl's face in the next episode.
Oh yeah,
that was a great fucking scene.
I can't remember. I'm trying to find her name, but yeah, Caro Rylance is the guy you were referring to, the sort of Ghorman front leader, and his daughter. Yeah, I've just found her name, Enza Rylance. I loved that whole like. Should we use this opportunity to like also segue into like Cassian's whole spy cover thing?
Outfit
that was
is so cool.
Okay, the outfit is really cool. I love
the Mission
that you got
Impossible,
a little bit.
like, you are so and so. You are an interior designer.
Did you know that was Sam Witwer doing the voiceover?
I did. I found that out afterwards.
It's so cool. I didn't know either until afterwards that it was Sam Witwer doing that cover. That's awesome. And I love the little like shop that he goes into again, like just to get that kind of cover. It's very kind of spycrafty, like you said, Mission Impossible stuff. And I love that when he gets to Ghorman, he again he's like we said earlier with the hotel clerk, he has that whole scene where he sort of is very friendly and
incredible.
Yeah, and he's very genuine. And then we get the complete opposite when he meets Enza in that restaurant, and she's very trusting of him, and he basically points out, that's a mistake. I could be ISB, and it's the kind of thing that would feel so harsh otherwise if we didn't know that they are already falling for Syril and the ISB's ploy. They've already kind of brought him into the fold and not actually fully check to see if he's like an ISB mole, which he is. So Cassian being aware of that and pointing that out to them is crazy. Like, to have that kind of scene happen, it's just, the writing is really cool.
You could just see the difference between Cassian, who's been doing this for a few years now with Luthen and them, just like, let me just tell you everything you're doing wrong right off the bat.
Yeah. And he keeps swinging back and forth between his like
the Variant Sky,
Variant
shoes.
I was very pretty. Like
loved that scene so much.
Oh god, yeah. Look, we've all been waiting for like a scene like that. I think in like a Star Wars show for a while. We've been very kind of a lot of not to critique the other Star Wars shows, but there has been a somewhat lacking amount of passion in these series, and that very much felt like a way of making up for it. Because and I love that it contrasts like Cassian and Bix's passionate embrace, like when they reunite in episode 3. It's such a contrast with Syril and Dedra's like chaste, restrained meeting.
It was so weird, dude.
Like there's like Cassian and Bix like snogging each other's faces off, and they're like so clearly like have such passion for each other. Syril can barely like just about like squeak out a like kiss on the cheek for Dedra.
I think we can like going full into episode 2 now. The one thing, episode 1, it does end. Cassian goes off to Ghorman at Luthen's behest, and we see that Bix, according to her, to just start sleeping, starts taking some kind of drug, and at that point, the alarm bells went off in my head, like, oh no, this is bad. Hopefully, it's not.
And then we also get her like sort of like just lethargically watching daytime Coruscant TV, which was hilarious to me because I didn't realize that I had to. It was on only my rewatch that I realized that both of the like women with the absurd wigs were both played by Ruby Wax, who's like kind of a fixture in the UK now. So that was a very cool like little cameo by her, and a great like it felt very holiday special.
It did,
which
it
is the
really
last
did.
thing. It's the last thing I would expect to get referenced in Andor. Do you know the other thing that I was never expecting to see a visual reference to in Andor? Fucking pod racing. We got the ISB people watching pod racing. Like we've all been wanting pod racing back in Star Wars Races. Who would have thought that Andor of all the shows was going to be the one that had a pod racing race?
Like that was like I didn't do a double take. I'm like, is that? And it was.
Yeah, how did you feel, Andrew, after spending Bad Batch season 2, just wishing we had a pod racing episode? Actually,
I was
getting
just about to bring that up. Like, I feel like they've been wanting to do it, but haven't. Like, we had Riot Racing. Star Wars Resistance was like this relay racing thing with ships, and it wasn't fully like it could have been pod racing. It's like now it's like finally pod racing. in Andor. Like, it's weird, but I love it.
I am putting a formal request to Lucasfilm right now. You know, we can clip it maybe if we want, but Lucasfilm, please do a new pod racing project. We both want it. That we know there's other fans that want it. It's such a cool thing. It would be so awesome to like have a whole show or film or like a new game even dedicated to pod racing.
Racer's getting re-released again, so like,
please do it.
Do a new one. You know what else we got a reference to from the Phantom Menace in this? Because I didn't realize this the first time I watched it, but in the art or the silk shop that Cassian visits, there's an Amoidian just chilling there.
There is an Amoidian. I know. Like,
so I was just like, again,
we're 2 for 2.
Tony Gilroy, big Phantom Menace guy.
I'll put something from the Acolyte in here. See how you like it.
Just you'll like it, and you'll be forced to like it. But again, I loved that whole spy mission, very Mission Impossible esque intro to Cassian going on Ghorman. I loved the whole look, his backstory, and then getting that deep moment with the bellhop, where we not only get some lore dump about Ghorman, but also just seeing how good Cassian is with making these connections with everyday people, which is why his reaction to the Ghorman front is so off-putting, and he's so like, nope, you're not ready. Abandon this. You can't do this. It's not going to end well. You're going to get crushed. And that's when Luthen and him kind of butt heads, because Luthen is fully okay with such a thing happening. If it
he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit if it means that more people will notice. He's like, a planet with the status of Ghorman, if they get crushed by the Empire, imagine what that'll do for our cause. It's like, yeah, he's right. But also, like, what else would be cool if a planet like that rose up and joined the rebellion in a full way, but we're definitely not going to see that. And it's just like,
Luthen is so focused on stoking the collective rage of the galaxy that he forgets the power that like true connection and unity kind of brings, really, and again, like you said, he's got that bond with Kleya, which we see to great effect in the 3rd episode. So it's definitely a blind spot for him, and is probably why he will eventually be phased out. I'll be surprised if he makes it through the 3rd arc, to be honest, given the 4th arc's probably going to be an exploration of the full rebel base, but we'll have to see. But I really liked that exchange with him and Cassian. It was very interesting to see them butt heads, both in the Fondor, which was cool to get that interior again, but also later on in his shop when he finds out that Luthen went and saw Bix in the apartment. Like,
and he shows back up. I thought some shit was gonna go down.
I was like, you better not send her on a mission and get her killed, you bastard. I will never forgive you if you do. But thankfully, he changed his mind, which was very interesting. But like, that interaction with Cassian on the Fondor is great. You have that whole thing of like that exchange of, you're thinking like a thief. I'm thinking like a soldier. Think like a leader. Like, it's very cool. Because you really see that Cassian still has like a sense of protectiveness for the people he's like fighting with, and Luthen is so removed from it because he's so fixated, again, much like Saw, on fighting what he hates, which is the Empire. It's a great exchange, and again, like, you have that exchange later on where he goes to, Cassian goes to his shop the minute he finds out that Luthen tried to send Bix on a mission. And there's that scene, there's the exchange between them where they basically, I alluded to earlier, where they talk about, is your relationship with Bix becoming a problem? And Cassian kind of says, well, you need to try and make it work, accommodate it. But I almost wonder if Cassian is going to maybe kind of like come around more to Luthen's way of thinking later on, where maybe something happens, Bix almost gets killed rather than actually killed, and he has to make a decision to sever that connection, for her good and for the good of the rebellion.
We'll see.
So fingers crossed, don't kill Bix.
Fingers crossed, indeed. Another thing that we didn't discuss in the first episode that is kind of continuing on in these last two is the stuff with Lonnie, and we get him fully more in the ISB, gaining trust of a lot more people just by like being a decent human being.
Yes,
like suggesting things to like make people's workloads easier. It's like, oh man, you really saved me in there.
Yeah, like they're all so like it's such a great little like note in that like subplot that the thing that lets him gain their trust is just that he's nice. He's nice to them. He helps them all out. You know, guess what? The Empire doesn't understand empathy. They don't get it at all. Like they're so taken aback by it that it completely undoes them, and to the fact that there's a fucking spy right there, but because he's nice to them all, they don't suspect him. It's great. I really like Lonnie. Lonnie as a character is really interesting because of like oh, thank you very much.
Oh, it's the Eldritch Horror again.
The Eldritch Hand returns. This is going to become a weekly thing at this point. Yeah, I liked that scene, as you mentioned, like Lonnie with meeting Luthen again. It was great. Gave us vibes of the "What do I sacrifice? Everything" speech. But Luthen was a bit more like a horror figure almost this time. The way he comes out of the shadows and he just like pulls the loot lift door open. It's like Stellan Skarsgård, man, he's so menacing when he slips into that gravelly tone.
And then it came out, I don't remember what was in those articles on StarWars.com or if it was another interview he did, but it came out that like the season 1 monologue, he like would either have his lines like fed to him in an earpiece or something because he was having trouble memorizing them due to a stroke. And I'm like, you can't tell it all with that performance.
It's incredible. It's incredible that he was like dealing with that at the time and was still able to like deliver such an emotive and intense performance as Luthen. Like, you know, I just have so much respect for that man. Like, an amazing ability there. But I really liked his scene with Lonnie, and as you said, like Lonnie's whole ingratiating himself with the ISB was fascinating. My favorite scene was like when he's with Hart, like Dedra Miro's own assistant, who's basically taken Blevin's place, and you get that moment where like Partagas says to them, "Oh, they're taking Gorst off our hands," and I bristled a bit at the mention of Gorst's name because I was like, "Wait, what? Oh, he's told Lonnie." He's told Lonnie, what does that mean? And you have the bit where Hart is so enthusiastic to take the assignment, and Partagas is like, "Really? It's an assignment? Calibrate your enthusiasm. Like, I know it's not that great. Don't hype it up to me. Don't kiss my ass."
Partagas is another guy. I'm like, dude's a piece of shit, but I love him. I just love his delivery of almost
Anton
every
Lesser,
line.
man. I loved his little delivery last week when they mentioned about Krennic having a depot built there, and he just goes, "Excuse me." Like it's that thing of like even he knows that that's like a risky venture. But yeah, Partagas is great. Like I like that they brought him into this mix, having a new Imperial character rather than who was the character they were originally planning on putting there. Like was it Tarkin or someone? I think there was a character that they was. Yeah, I think there was an established character that they were going to put on the ISB thing, but they came up with Partagas instead. And I love that they did because he's got a different kind of like not weariness, but a kind of like self-awareness of everything to do with the ISB, and he hasn't really got any time for the politicking. He just wants results in a way, which makes him very he plays the game, but he's also aware of the game in a sense, which makes him an interesting kind of counterpart to Dedra, who also is just all in for like getting results and stuff, which I've gone from talking about Lonnie to just talking about Partagas and how much of a like creep he is. But yeah, the ISB stuff is really like fascinating.
Absolutely. It like I like that everything all came full circle during that party with Mon Mothma in the 3rd episode, which I like that. Okay. 3 different plots just came together in that one scene.
Because we didn't talk about Mon, did we? Like how she is. They reseeded very effectively her caring for the Ghorman people, because she mentioned it in season 1, and again we see her going around like talking to the various senators. You know, they talking to them about getting support for Ghorman. Even the Ghorman senator doesn't want to agitate the Empire, and it just shows how paralyzed with fear the Senate is, no matter which senator she's talking to. I will say that there was one senator there. He looked kind of familiar to me. A little familiar, like he might have been in another show. I think we're going to have to segue into another episode of Who Watch. Yeah. So I'm pulling my notes up here because for the first time, really, since we started this segment on For the Republic, we're going into the classic series of Doctor Who that first started in 1963 because Senator, I believe it's Senator number 2. He doesn't get a name, but he's played by Madhav Sharma, who appeared in the Doctor Who serial Frontier in Space in 1973. So this story predates Star Wars by 4 years. He played like a character called Patel, who was a lunar penal colony prisoner. That's the story with John Pertwee. I believe it's the story that introduced like the Doctor's arch enemy, the Master, and it also features the Daleks. I've yet to watch it, but yeah, we've got an actual actor from the classic series of Doctor Who that's popped up here. We just need like the fifth Doctor now to like pop up and play like an Imperial officer or something. That would be kind of cool. Yeah. I'm just mentioning that because I could see that actor Peter Davison playing that kind of character. Little trivia note, by the way, just for any Star Wars fans listening who aren't big Doctor Who buffs. Peter Davison, who played the fifth Doctor in the 80s in the classic series, he is the father-in-law of David Tennant, who I may have mentioned a few times.
Just a couple times.
Because his daughter Georgia, Peter Davison's daughter Georgia Moffat, appeared in the fourth series of fourth series of the revived Doctor Who series during David Tennant's run, and they met and they wound up getting married and they have kids together. So there's like a whole like Doctor Who lineage now that encompasses multiple Doctors and even like a guest star. It's wild.
That is wild. There's so much there that goes into it. I was like, I gotta imagine that there's another character in this arc that has something. And we finally got it.
Anyone who's seen my Twitter should see that I posted the GIF from Ghostbusters with Janine going, "We got one!" I can confirm that I was going through the cast list, starting to despair a little bit that I hadn't found a single actor. And I was like, I really want to find at least one Andor actor a week who's in Who Watch to carry on this tradition. And I found Madhav Sharma's name and immediately was like, yes!
There we go.
I'm taking this seriously, listeners. What can I say?
So we had that plot of Mon just kind of getting no approval from any of the Senate. We find out from Perrin about this big party that's going to happen for the what is that Senate? There's a name for it that they give.
I think it's not inauguration, is it?
Senate investiture.
Senate investiture, perfect. And I noticed about Perrin. I noticed about Perrin as well that he doesn't seem all that enthused about it. Like,
no, he's like, how many years was it before you could have a party like this? And then these people that are just getting sworn in are having one.
He's disillusioned with all of the like political BS, and I loved Genevieve O'Reilly's delivery of like, you'll I'm sure you'll manage that kind of stuff of like, I was here years ago, darling. Believe me. I know how this feels.
This is like the wide variety of the spectrum of my Star Wars fandom, because I think this was in the third episode where we see the Cassian and Bix kiss, and I was like, fucking hell yeah, this show rules. And then the Vel Cinta kiss happens, and it's the same thing. And then like we get a Senate scene, like almost in between them, like, and then a Senate scene, like, dude, this show's amazing.
We're getting so fed, and I love that there's like the alien in the middle in like in Palpatine's thing. That's the senator getting sworn in. He looks like he reminded me of like the Prophet of Truth from the Halo games. He looked very distractingly like a prophet from Halo, which was cool. But
it showed a great deal of how meaningless the Senate has really become at this stage of like they're just pawns, they're just puppets, they're just propaganda machines.
And when even is like so bracing against it.
When even Perrin is like, I've had enough of this shit. Some stuff is changing. The other thing that we see throughout that in the lead to the party is the amazing, in my opinion, opening to the fifth episode, where the Andor intro is synced up with Kleya's like radio scramblings.
Yeah.
And you make out her spying on Davos Golden, because he's having his art gallery showcase at this party. And because because of this bug that they have on one of his pieces, they find out that one of the pieces is forged, and he's going to be essentially auditing his entire collection.
Yeah.
And this sends Kleya into she just starts freaking out. And then her and Luthen have a back and forth about it.
Yeah.
Because she has to tell him that. And she's like, how could you be so foolish? And it's just like,
she's like, are you done?
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, Rebel Mom and Dad are fighting.
I love Kleya. Like, she is, every episode, I feel like
this was a great
rising
arc
up.
for Kleya.
I feel like she's rising up my character ranking every single episode, especially when we get to that Imperial party and we see her remove the bug herself, and the way she does it, and her using Lonnie to do so. I thought was such a great scene. And we will get into that. It was
Elizabeth
so tense.
Bilal has been fantastic. Like, this was a great arc for her because, like, she finally really got to show just how competent Kleya is at this kind of stuff, even when dealing with setbacks. Like, she's been the character who's been perhaps the most curt to other characters, like be it Cassian or Mon Mothma or Vel even. Yeah. Like, so to see her, put her actually like under pressure and dealing with like an actual mission of her own, it was really fascinating. And watching her like kind of slip from being flirtatious with Lonnie to like dead serious whilst she was trying to get the bug out of the table, it was so fucking tense when her hand stopped and the clever little thing she'd attached to her dress to like plug into it and pry it loose. When that got stuck, my fingers were in my mouth. I was like,
God.
And it's like you're going from like you said, multiple emotions here, because there's like the tension, and then there's also the like fabulous display that is Mon Mothma and Krennic having this barely concealed like face off over their politics. I was like, the minute that they came over to the party and he said, oh, the person who helped make it happen was here, I was like, oh, is it Krennic? And then they cut to him like with the obnoxious grin on his face.
I had a very similar thing, because we were like, there's like maybe 20-ish minutes left in that episode when that scene starts, and I'm like, because I watched these episodes late, or later than I did last week, because I wasn't able to watch them until Thursday. And I was like, I swear I saw Krennic in the thumbnail for a review for this episode, and he's not in it yet. And then, like, literally as I'm thinking that, it's like, oh, and the person that brought this all together, director Krennic. I'm like, there he is. There's that beautiful bastard.
It's so good. Like I love the way Genevieve O'Reilly plays Mon Mothma. She cannot stand Krennic. Like the way she spits the lines out of him, like, how great to see you free of the witness stand. And the way Ben Mendelsohn plays off of that, where he almost like gets off on like how much Mon Mothma can't stand him. Like the little chuckle he does, and he goes, what a festive evening this has become. I was like, you bastard.
I am like, I love how they've used him so far, but I'm also very upset that it's like, we're only getting him for this season. Like, I just want a whole
He's
show.
so much more confident. It's great to see him peacocking all over the place, like throwing his weight around as like director Krennic, knowing how much he's going to be like put under the boot by Tarkin and Darth Vader in Rogue One. It's such a, and again, this is a great reason of why Darth Vader and Tarkin should not be in this show, because what I love about Andor, it's one of my favorite things about it, is the sense of escalation that has built throughout the show. So it makes perfect sense that by like at the end of this show, when we get to Rogue One, that is this, in a sense, the series finale in a lot of ways, we finally bring in the big guns, basically, that is Tarkin, that is Vader, and like all of the more kind of like traditional Star Wars stuff that we know from the movies. But that party, the party scene was fantastic. I love seeing all of the Coruscant stuff. I like that the building that they use, like, okay, the location shooting. This is the last thing I'm going to say before we segue into like the other big thing to talk about. But I loved the location shooting that because I believe they shot again some of this stuff in Spain, kind of like with what they did with Chandrilla. But the shot where Mon Mothma is walking across this building, and you see the Senate building in the background of like from the prequel trilogy, like the big Senate building, it's so seamlessly done, and it makes that whole location from the prequels feel so much more tactile and real, and it's great. Like the way they have scouted city locations to blend with the Coruscant backdrop and make
nice.
arguably one of the more CGI heavy built locations in Star Wars feel very much lived in and real. It's fantastic. It's like it's that kind of stuff we as Coruscant fans could have wanted. But now I think we should segue into like into the big talking, one of the big talking points of this episode, and that is, of course, the Bail Organa recast. We meet Bail very briefly at the party. He greets Mon Mothma, and of course, it's not Jimmy Smits playing the role; it's Benjamin Bratt. Let's discuss.
Yeah, so Tony Gilroy had kind of hinted at in the, I want to say, week or two before Andor premiered, that hey, there were going to be some legacy characters that we either couldn't include or had to recast because of scheduling issues. And like, we really tried, we really did, but some certain things just don't work out. And that had a lot of people like worried, like, oh God, please don't be Jimmy. Like, please do not be Jimmy. And then I warned you guys, because when the review embargo broke for Andor season 2, someone decided to put in the review that Benjamin Bratt was playing Bail Organa.
I wonder who it could be.
Yeah, who could that have
Variety.
been? You're on my list right now, Variety. And I was just like, heads up, guys, this is out there. And people were very upset. And I was one of them, because we hadn't gotten the full context yet. And at that point, I was just like, I mean, if it's a scheduling issue, I understand it. But it's just like, I would have just written him out of the show. Like, it feels weird.
Yeah.
Now I've kind of evolved. Where obviously Bail Organa to me is going to be Jimmy Smits, because like that's who I think of when I see the character. Obviously, he's been voiced by Phil Lamar in the Clone Wars and Rebels and the Bad Batch, but animation has always been different. We kind of expect
like a different layer.
We kind of expect for the majority of these characters that they're going to be voiced by other people in the majority of these animated projects. But for live action, it's always been the same. I will say, like, it's not the same thing as, like Alden Ehrenreich or Donald Glover playing Han or Lando, because those are, like, with all respect to Bail Organa and Jimmy Smits, those are much larger characters in the scene of Star Wars. So it's a different conversation, but at the same time, if our options were, we recast Bail because we need him in this show. He's in Rogue One. He's essential to the birth of the rebellion and Mon's character. We can't have a show like this and just not have Bail Organa in it. I was actually kind of shocked he wasn't in season 1. I think that was kind of them holding the restraint. It's like, all right, we're going to save him for season 2. We want to really focus on Mon this season. But I was like, because Jimmy Smits was in Kenobi that year. So I was like,
he was.
Well, he's definitely going to be in Andor. And then he wasn't. So that was shocking. And we like kind of expected him to be in season 2. We knew Benjamin Bratt was going to have a role. We just didn't know who it was. And then it comes out it's Bail. I think that them being so transparent, and again, this is new for Lucasfilm, so I applaud them. As we mentioned in our celebration recap, the amount of transparency that there was in both the Ahsoka panel and the Mando and Grogu panel, I thought was very refreshing compared to the years of announcement. We never hear about it for 3 years. It gets silently canceled. Or there were quote unquote creative differences. Like, hey, we really tried to get Jimmy, man. He had another commitment. He's busy. We couldn't work it around his schedule and our shooting schedule, and we couldn't make it work. And of course, there's armchair TV producers who are like, well, you could just, reshoot his scenes. And, it's like, TV production is different you can't
movies,
just do certain things like that. Like if schedules don't work, you only have these sets for an allotted period of time.
Exactly.
If you can't get it to work around your shooting schedule, it's not going to work. Like Liam Neeson was not in Revenge of the Sith because of that reason. Like they're very clearly, and I've noticed this watching that movie twice in the last week. That because they had the deleted scene of Yoda listening to Qui-Gon Jinn's vision. And that where he's meditating on Paulus Massa, that is very clearly supposed to be him listening to Qui-Gon's spirit.
Well, the
But it's
comic
just-
adaptation of Revenge of the Sith has that dialogue where they're talking to each other. So it absolutely
and they
was
kind
meant
of
to be that.
repurposed that into the Clone Wars arc in season 6. But like Liam, I think he either had a car accident or something, or like something was involved where in his schedule where he just he was not available during the filming of that movie and the production of that movie, so he couldn't be in there. This is not a thing that is not normal in TV. This happens all the time. It's just the fact that this is a big legacy character that we have known as only one person our entire lives, and it's a decent named actor in Jimmy Smits, so we're always going to be like, man, I miss Jimmy. And I don't think this is them being like, hey, you're never going to like see Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa again. This is them saying he couldn't be in this show. We trust Benjamin can be in this role. Kathleen Kennedy requested that he play the character or recommended the actor to Tony Gilroy and to the producers of Andor. And it sounds like Jimmy approved of it. It sounds like Benjamin approved of replacing the character. And I loved the way, or loved is a bit different. But I think it was smart the way they handled it and they said this in the interview of, we're going to write Bail into this episode as kind of just an introductory, let's peel the Band-Aid off right now.
Yeah.
Get this over with, get the awkwardness over with so people can get used to the recast. And then in the next arc, he's going to have a much bigger role. I think that's smart because, I see it and me fully aware that, hey, this isn't going to be Jimmy Smits. I'm like waiting for it. And I see it and I'm like, okay, he does feel like Bail, but I'm like, it's still kind of weird. And that's just natural because we've known this character as one person our whole life. So we're just like, it's kind of like, obviously it's different now because he's fully taken the role, but like Don Cheadle in Iron Man 2.
I was totally going to say the same thing. And it's a very similar way that they handled it, just like in Iron Man 2, Don Cheadle comes up and says, look, it's me, I'm here, let's move on. The vibe, the idea behind that Bail scene is very much the same idea. I watched this with my family and I said, I bet he's got more to do in the next arc. I bet they've put him in here just to let everyone get it out of their system about how weird it feels and how, the general awkwardness of it, so that when he does the next arc, it won't be as much at the forefront when Benjamin Bratt is really having to like be more dramatic with the performance. And Tony Gilroy literally said that in an interview that, yes, I just put him here, did this scene so that everyone can get it all out of their system. And, it's an understandable feeling. Like, obviously, I would prefer that Jimmy Smits had been able to record his scenes for Andor season 2. Of course I would. I'm a Star Wars fan. I love that consistency.
Tony Gilroy said that. Like, he literally said, yes, we would have loved it if it could have been Jimmy, but it couldn't be. So we did the next best thing.
But as you said, sometimes the stars just don't align in terms of production, just, scheduling, just human stuff. It happens. It's a thing that happens. And, we have to kind of process it. And also, I would be kind of a hypocrite if, given how much I've been kind of eager for roles like Luke, Leia, and Han to be recast, played by new actors going forward. If I didn't give this the benefit of the doubt and say, well, you know what, they couldn't get Jimmy Smits. I obviously would have loved him here, but Benjamin Bratt is a great actor. He was great in Poker Face. He was really good in the scenes with Natasha Lyonne. He's a great actor, and he's more than capable, I think, of embodying Bail's his nobility, his conviction, his passion for justice and fair democracy. So, I think when it comes to like Senate scenes, because we've got that promotional still of him in the Senate scenes, he's going to cook as Bail, no doubt. It's just weird adjusting to a new character. But I had this. I was just going to say that, like, I was just going to say though about like the recasting thing. I just think that we as a fandom, as awkward and as sometimes weird it can feel, I do think we as a fandom need to get a little more comfortable with the idea of recastings, because this has been a problem with the original trilogy cast in particular. Like, yes, we all enjoyed the deep fake Luke Skywalker cameo in the rescue episode of The Mandalorian. It was great. It was a huge like shock, amazing scene to happen. but it only goes so far. It has a very, very low ceiling, and
when you saw a full episode of it, it started to kind of wane a little bit.
It paradoxically looked better, but also was more awkward,
worse.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing. Is like, I get it, Dave. You wanted to get a very specific visual out of your head onto the screen. We all appreciated that very small moment, but you can't use that for an entire character.
I think if our option was recast Bale, get someone similar, another Latino actor, get someone that can carry that gravitas of the character, and as opposed to a weird CGI deepfake kind of thing for a character that it doesn't need to be that. Like, it would have been a Tarkin and Rogue One scenario where it's just distracting, and it would have been like,
and
I would have preferred a recast.
It is the thing. Like, I had such conflicting feelings about the Tarkin thing, because when I found out who the actor was who was playing the role, I lost my mind, because I was like, oh my God, Guy Henry is perfect. You cast perhaps the most perfect actor you probably could to play Tarkin in the new films. He's an amazing actor. He's I used to watch the hospital drama Holby City. He was fantastic in that. He was my favorite character in that. So when I found out he was playing Tarkin, I was like, whoa. And then to find out that they put a load of CGI on his face just to make him look like Peter Cushing, it felt like a real disservice to such a great actor playing the role.
Like,
it's
you
like,
could have just, again, like, and I had this conversation with Jake before the news officially broke, and it was just the stuff that broke in the embargo, where we were like, man, I'm upset that we're not going to get Jimmy cooking with like Andor scripts and Andor dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been really awesome.
Would have been great.
It would have been like how Genevieve is getting her flowers. Like, if Jimmy could have fully gotten that in this. But again, we haven't even seen the bulk of the episodes yet. So maybe I'll have a different opinion. But right now, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Same.
And of course, it's natural for us to feel weird. So I love Solo, but admittedly, at first, weirdly enough, I didn't have this problem with Lando because I was already a massive fan of Donald Glover. So I was just like, okay, I'm accepting this. I can see him in the role. But like, Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. So like when Han was announced, and I hadn't seen Hail Caesar, so I didn't know much of Alden Ehrenreich's filmography prior. So I was like, this is going to feel weird. And some people had that same problem. But like, you look at The Mandalorian with Luke, and you look at Rise of Skywalker with Billy Lord, but with Leia's face over Billy Lord, and same thing with Rogue One. It's going to have diminishing returns. And if I really hope with Filoni's movie, because I assume they're going to play a role in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. They go the recast route and they don't go the deepfake route, because I just don't think that's going to work for a full movie. And I really
won't.
Hope they're leaning towards it. Because and I was having this conversation in my head. I was like, okay, you say this, but at the same time, you are all for a Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen doing a prequel story again, maybe on like a Disney Plus thing with them being de-aged. I feel like that's a bit different, though.
It is different,
because it wasn't like Mark Hamill was on set for The Mandalorian season 2, but that wasn't him as Luke. So like, and
like, Hayden and Ewan are still giving full performances. Their performances aren't going to be limited by like technology in the way that deepfake Luke was in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. It's just not the same thing. And I agree with you. I really hope going forward in Filoni's movie that they don't use deepfakes, that they recast with new actors, because these are like some of the most important characters in all of Star Wars. And as much as we love those original actors and their portrayals, if we're going to get more stories in visual mediums with those characters outside of animation, then we do need to kind of forge forward with new recastings. It would be so hypocritical of us as a fandom not to be embracing of that, given that one of the most beloved actors in the Star Wars franchise is a recast. Ewan McGregor. My favorite incarnation of Obi-Wan is the recast, is Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, these things can work. They can bring whole other dimensions to these characters that we already love so much, and it would just be a real slight on the part of this fandom if we let our nostalgia blind us to giving these characters more stories going forward.
Absolutely. And like people have been people have like simultaneously wanted Sebastian Stan as Luke for so long, but then are also like, well, I don't want anyone but Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker.
Come on.
And it's
I still think Sebastian Stan would be great. Personally,
it would be great. And like if you literally just like, I get it, she played a different character, and that's why it was kind of weird in Rise for it to be like just Billy Lord's face on Leia in that scene. But like, I would just cast her as Leia in Dave's movie.
I am also partial to the actress from the lead actress from My Lady Jane, because she's got a very similar vibe to Carrie Fisher that I just really appreciate. But Billy Lord would be great as well.
You could go like literally any other, but it's just like we need to accept that things like this happen, and if we want, like you said, if we want to continue to see stories with these characters on screen, we are approaching 50 years of this franchise. And
can you imagine if they brought out new actors at Star Wars Celebration to announce that they're playing the characters in Dave Filoni's movie? That would be a hell of a move. And
it's just like, especially with the original trio, it's tricky now because we've lost one of the originals. Like Carrie's been gone for 9 years now, which is crazy. But like, if we still want Leia stories, we're going to need to accept that someone else is going to have to play the character in live action. We've gotten that with Han. Luke, we're still in a gray area, and it's just like, I get it. It's cool to have that novelty of, look, it's young Mark Hamill's face, but it's a different guy playing Luke. But then it's also Mark Hamill's voice modulated to sound like old Luke. And I get it. It's cool for a scene, and it's cool for like, oh, nostalgia. Like, yeah, I got really excited when Luke showed up in The Mandalorian Season 2. Everyone.
Yeah, me too.
Book of Boba Fett, I was like, all right, it looks a lot cooler, but
the dialogue really feels like you're writing around the problem. Again, I love the shot of him with Ahsoka. That's great. The actual visual of it is cool. The scene itself is so handicapped by that that technology and that voice.
And I just don't think if you're going to keep telling stories with these characters for years, you can't be handicapped by things like that. Like Leia in episode 9 was a tricky situation because they didn't want to recast, so they had to go around using footage they already had, and as a result, limiting certain characters' roles and interactions to fit with the Carrie Fisher footage. You can't do that for every other movie going forward. If you want to continue to have these characters, you need to accept that new actors need to play them at some point. And yes, 100%. The first time you see them, maybe even the second time, maybe even it's never going to feel fully right. You're going to feel uncomfortable, and you're going to be like, this is new, this is different, I don't like it. And that's normal to think that way. But if you want to continue to see these characters, and especially this is a different scenario because like Jimmy Smith isn't dead. Jimmy Smith is still thriving. I mean, Jimmy Smith is still thriving.
He's probably going to play Bale again after this. I wouldn't be shocked.
This is not going to be the last time we see him as Bail Organa, assuming everything goes right and nothing horrible happens. But like, odds are we're going to see him again with that character.
Yeah.
But like, it's something we need to get used to. And yes, I'm a hypocrite because I guarantee you, if they said, hey, in this flashback in Ahsoka, Padme's going to be in it, it's going to be a different actress, I'd be like, well, what the fuck, man? Like,
well, you know, again,
if you're not going to have Natalie, then don't bring the character back.
But again, that's a slightly different thing where like that is flashbacks are a little more fluid. You can manipulate them. So I think you've got a little bit of leeway there as opposed to Bale.
With the situation this was, and I think it's a lot of these things you can have the conversation focused on, okay, well, what is the context of this recasting? If our options are option A, we keep the role the exact same it was going to be, we recast the character. Option B, we completely write the character out of the show, maybe making it feel a little weird that, hey, a character this important to the early birth of the rebellion, which is the whole point of the show, just isn't in it at all. That's going to feel a little bit weird. And you'll be like, well, why wasn't Bail Organa in the show? And they'd be like, well, because we couldn't get Jimmy Smits. It's like, well, why didn't you just recast? And it's just like, well, because we were going to have this conversation and you were going to get mad regardless. And then it's like, or option C, weird CGI deepfake, or you potentially delay the show even further to accommodate Jimmy, which means that the show doesn't come out until way later than it should, and it just screws up the whole production.
Yeah.
I would go with option A in that scenario. And I think that's what they did. And people seem to be the people that have seen this season in its entirety seem to be really happy with Benjamin Bratt's performance. I'm confident he's going to do a good job. So I think the moral of the story is it feels weird. We're still getting used to it, but I think we can accept it. And I don't think we need to be going for the guy when he said literally one scene so far.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Give the guy a chance.
We haven't got to the meat. We've scratched the surface. We haven't got to the meat of this performance yet. So let's wait and see until next week, and just give this performance the credit, the weight it deserves. Essentially,
what I will say though, one last thing before we move fully on to the meat and the potatoes of this third episode.
Yeah. Had to get this out of our system.
Related to this recasting thing is, I think again we talked about the evolution of transparency within Lucasfilm. I think both this and how they've handled the Baylan Skull recast, which is obviously an entirely different scenario. That was a sudden loss of an actor they weren't expecting.
Exactly.
Where it's like, okay, well, do we write the character out of the show? Do we not continue the series? Or do we go with someone, we recast the role, we really make sure it fits with the wishes of not only Ray Stevenson's family, but what we think is best for the show, and we go with that. And I think the fact that they went with the recast in Ahsoka and they went with the recast in Bail, I think that works. And I think that's a good sign of what's to come, because they very easily could have just done the CGI deepfake bullshit for Baylan in season 2. And it would have felt weird. And we would have been like, well, this actor literally just died. It feels kind of weird.
Yeah, it feels. Yeah, it would have felt wrong, and paradoxically disrespectful to that original actor's performance.
So I think this is a good step towards the future, and I hope that this is them realizing, hey, it's cool in one scene, a whole movie. If we know we're going to be leading up to this Heir to the Empire movie, and maybe even if they're not the main characters, we know they're probably going to factor in a couple scenes. Probably should get new actors in there. So that would be the last bit I'm going to say there. More of the story.
I agree.
Give Benjamin Bratt a chance. Let's just judge him on his performance and see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. Yeah, very well said.
You know what I can talk about now though? The romance. Because I alluded to it earlier. That ending shot in the first episode as Cassian is leaving for Ghorman, with the hands. Dude. Like that scene was beautiful, and it reminded me of the literal ending shot of Avengers Endgame with Steve and Peggy, and I was just
with the dancing,
with the dance. I was just like,
I was going to say it reminded me of Age of Ultron a little bit with the hand touching with Black Widow and the Hulk, but yeah, that's a lovely moment. It shows their tenderness and their trust in each other. It's beautifully portrayed by Diego and Adria.
I don't know why, but my mind just immediately went to Bix going to Cassian. Hey there, big guy. Sun's getting real low. I'm like, don't know. Cassian's getting overworked in the grocery store. It's like, sun's getting, and then
he gets like this sometimes.
Sun's going down.
It's like Thor after seeing what Dedra and Syril get up to in the dark. That's in my brain now.
Oh God.
Oh no. Yeah. Less said about that, the better.
Less said better. But going off of the second episode when Cassian meets with Luthen, he's like, "No, I can't do this Ghorman shit. They're not ready. It's gonna be a mistake." So what does Kleya do? Immediately gets Vel and Cinta on the case.
Yeah, I was like, "Are you serious?" You immediately send Vel in Cassian's place because Cassian
I like how they
crazy.
Kleya just kind of assumed, or Kleya and Luthen both just kind of assumed this isn't gonna work with Cassian. Let's send the other mercenaries.
Well, yeah, Kleya. I love the code that they speak in as well. But Kleya basically says, "Yeah, I thought that was a dead end." And Luthen was like, "Oh, well, I hoped if he saw it, it would be different." Because again, Luthen's big flaw here is that he's so obsessed with taking more and more risks and burning more and more people and slash worlds in the hope that it will burn the Empire down finally. But yeah, to say about Vel and Cinta, that scene in the cafe was, I loved that scene.
First of all,
The
that
framing.
shot.
The yin and yang
so
shot
good.
was great, and again, this is the kind of thing where the deftness of the writing and the performances between the two of them, it turned what could have been a very kind of like, oh well, this feels like we should have had a whole arc focused on this, into a really like great moment of like, because there's the whole thing Cinta says about how she was injured in something. I do find it hilarious that people have joked that it was because she just decided to crash her speeder with Tay, but I'm sure like I again, this is why I like the still very contained approach with these arcs, is that we could get comics and novels and tie-ins like for years afterwards depicting the time periods for these characters and what they went through. I'd read a whole comic about what Cinta went through that led her to reevaluate things.
Frothing at the mouth right now, like watching.
Give me some Andor tie-ins, please. He wrote the Rogue One novelization. He knows some of these characters. So yeah, give him an Andor tie-in. That would be great.
Exactly.
But that scene was lovely. I thought again, Virada Sethu, Faye Marseille, they had a real kind of like emotional kind of honesty in that scene, like the way they're talking to each other, like the line again, I only agreed to this mission because of Luthen. You're the only reason I'm here. That's such a painfully tragic line now. But it was lovely to see after so much caginess, both on the part of the show and from the characters, to kind of say, are they in a couple? Because outside of that one scene with Skeen, where Skeen makes a joke about them sharing a blanket, you don't know for sure if they're a couple. And I thought for sure when they were like when they were approaching each other and they put their foreheads together, I was like, I swear, if you cut away from this now, don't you dare cut away.
I got scared.
Go.
I was like because I was doing my shipping, I was like, make out, and then
and then it happened,
and then they did, and I was like, I literally I was like,
they beat the Disney producers. They beat the Disney producers.
Can't cut this out of the Middle East. It was so good, man. It was so rewarding, and I literally like this and the Cassian and Bix moment. I tweeted like, I've been waiting 3 years for this.
Let characters kiss. Love in Star Wars is great.
I just was so excited to see this because we got the makeup and then that in the exact same scene. I'm just like, oh my god, my shipping card. I'm so excited. And then they fucking killed her. I was so mad, dude. And I was literally like, the thought went through my head as it was happening. I'm like, okay, so they're not just gonna like kill one of them now, right? And
the minute that shot went off, I was like, oh no, this is Andor. It's not just gonna careen, it's gonna have hit someone. And the minute we cut back to Vel, and she's running, and you see the body, and I was like, oh no, I know it's gonna be Cinta, but please don't be Cinta. And then it is Cinta, and it's like,
get up, Curly. Get up, please,
man. Oh, and I was still hoping that she would get up like through the whole period, the whole thing, and just revive somehow. And it wasn't to be. She was you said before, it's just like Brasso. She's just killed indiscriminately. She doesn't even get
see it.
She doesn't even get a dying line. She's just gone. It's so sudden, and it's heartbreaking that when they were finally coming together and finally sort of realizing that just how much Luthen sort of has been keeping them apart in a sense, or keep, just as he's sort of doing with Cassian and Bix in a sense, like, because he views them all better as individual assets. It's a great highlighting of Luthen's terrible like it's effective, but it's also limited. His strategy of keeping everyone apart so that they can be the best asset they can be. Like Cinta says, we're stronger to him, we're better to him apart than together, and that could be a metaphor for the whole rebellion, the entire rebellion, because together they're powerful, but separate in Luthen's eyes, they're more effective killers. They're more effective destructive agents. But yeah, I can't believe we lost Brasso in week 1. We've lost Cinta in week 2. It's devastating, and it touches off like because obviously again this is another thing. Just there's another talking point, just like the Bale recasting, where just as like there were people who were understandably feel a bit weird about that. There was understandably a lot of LGBTQ viewers who felt a little bit let down by that twist in the plot. They felt, obviously it's a very Yeah, exactly. It's kind of playing into the, the kill your gays trope. And it's the kind of thing I wrestled with a little bit, because I do think overall, in terms of how the scene is done, it's certainly executed well.
Powerful. It's
and
executed
the scene
well,
following.
And I think people took Verada's words out of context when she was like, "Oh, it was meaningless." Like she wasn't saying the scene sucked. She was saying the death because of the way it happened, and that's the emotion that we're going for, and that we've been getting throughout this season. That is making these characters like Cassian and like Vel get further ingrained into this. I'll do anything for the rebellion mindset that we see them in. But yeah, admittedly, I wasn't mad. I wasn't like, well, this is bad writing. I wasn't like, I was just upset. And that is because Cinta was admittedly my favorite of the Aldani crew.
Same. I love Cinta. She was great.
And I was a little upset that she showed up at the very end of episode 3, and she shows up in this episode, and then they kill her. And people are like, well, is it because she's in Doctor Who? And Tony Gilroy said, well, no, this was always the story we had planned to further Vel's character. And I don't know if I like that much, because I feel like she's grown as more of a character than just someone to further Vel's story. They were both leads of the show. It was not just Vel.
Yeah.
So that
they feel like equals in their scenes, really. So it's
wording,
the kind of thing where it's like
I wasn't huge on. Again, I don't think it's a knock against the episode, because I still think overall the episode was unbelievable, and it got the right emotional impact out of me, because I was so sad and so upset, and they obviously wanted you to feel those emotions.
Yes.
But it's difficult, and I don't, again, like we said last week, I don't think there's a wrong or a right opinion to have here.
I literally was going to say the exact same thing.
It's different, and yes, some people, and this isn't a flaw. This isn't a wrong way, quote unquote, to consume media. But yeah, certain people, when their favorite characters die, or when characters that they have a personal connection to die, specifically those of POC individuals or LGBTQ fans, if those characters die, you're going to get upset. And that's a valid reason for being upset. Totally. I just don't think it negatively impacted the episode. But I am a little bit like, man, if we could have found a way to keep Cinta alive, or at least not have her die 10 minutes after the big kiss scene, it would have gone over better. But to frame the episode to where you keep going back and forth between the Ghorman heist, which was executed very cool, and the shit with Kleya and Mon and Krennic at that party on Coruscant, I thought was a masterclass of editing and a masterclass.
Oh, the editing was fantastic.
It was fantastic. It was
amazing.
Tense. I also loved Syril just spying on them the whole time and like feeding Dedra and Pardigraz this information as it's happening. I did find it interesting because, like, when Cyril's like, "Oh, there were shots. What the hell's going on?"
Yeah,
and I thought that might have been the moment. He's got a little smile. I didn't notice that at first. I thought that would have been like, "Is this when Cyril's like, oh fuck, what happened here?" But no, he's like, he got a little.
He's still a nasty little Imperial
simp. So we'll see. But I was just like, again, when that shot went out, that fucking dude, because she
fucking Sam.
They hinted at it, and nothing has been without purpose and without, hey, if we're going to have a line like this, it's going to come back and mean something. When they were like, Cinta and I are going to be the only ones that have blasters, the only ones.
Yeah.
And we see two people leave their post. The one girl with the hat, forget her name,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. She leaves because an older woman comes and she like gets her away from the wreckage. And then the dude with the mustache from the
who's making a scene during the big meet.
Scene from the town hall comes in, and long-haired fuck starts arguing with him. We were on the same side again. The same thing that happened with the Maya Pi Brigade. They're arguing. They're on the same side here, and it just shows, hey, this is why these rebel units need to not be disorganized, and they need to be one cohesive unit. We are seeing that play out here for, again, useless, meaningless again, but like,
ego-driven,
unneeded
basically.
death.
Yeah,
that
French
led
New
to
Waves,
a blaster going off and us losing. And of course, again, and I think if this was the blaster goes off and it's one of the rebels we just met 2 episodes ago, like if it was,
it wouldn't have hit the same way.
If it was the daughter of the leader, it wouldn't have hit as much, and it would have been like, oh well, we just know her, but like, oh, this is going to mean a lot to the rebels.
Like if anything, we would have been like, thank God it was that person and not Cinta.
But because it's Cinta, it does add to the stakes of the episode and the stakes of the Ghorman front. And like, no, you do need to get your shit together if you're going to do this, because this was not needed at all.
Exactly.
And I think Faye Marseille had her best performance and her best moment of the entire show as they're on the carrier back after this, where she just lays into this motherfucker.
Like he's just sitting there, like having the nerve to cry in front of her, and she's just like,
are
look
you
at
crying
me
right now?
Are you crying? Like Faye, like you said, Faye Marseille, it's her best. I think that is her best like performance as Vel in the whole series. Like the emotion she's like carrying, the way she's fighting the urge, because she would want, I wouldn't have blamed her if she'd shot him right there and then because of the fact that what he did. But like the dialogue is amazing. Oh, this is on you now. This is like skin. Oh, and to die like this because of you, some weak, simpering, foolish child. Don't you dare cry.
Yeah.
You'll make.
I'm not going to say remember this because I don't have to. You're taking her with you wherever you go for the rest of your useless life.
It's so.
And then
it's so good.
Her saying she was a miracle.
Oh, and the light flashes over her when she says that. It's like I saw that one tweet that said it. Oh, that's like Cinta. That's like Cinta seeing her. In that moment, I was like, "Oh, fuck you!"
I replied to that. I did the Ray streaming face.
No. Oh, and this is the kind of thing. It's like that scene and the acting is so well done. And I'm gonna harken back to what you said before about like this is the kind of thing. Writing is really tricky. It is entirely possible. It's not a black and white thing. It is entirely possible to write a story out for a character that is affecting, that is devastating, that is like both incredibly well acted and incredibly well written, that can also at the same time play into troubling plot tropes that have arisen, especially regarding characters from a marginalized background and how they're treated. It happens, and it's a difficult line to walk, and it's a complicated thing, and again, like you said, there's no right or wrong way to feel about this. You're equally valid to like enjoy the scene for what it was. But again, if you were a person who felt represented by Vel or Cinta and you are upset at this kind of development and feel that the show is disappointing for like playing into that trope, that is a completely valid response to have to the show. And it doesn't mean that Tony Gilroy or anyone involved with it is homophobic or anything necessarily. But yeah, everyone can play into tropes now and again, even when they're like writing stuff like they're at the top of their writing game. It's it's a difficult thing.
It's perfectly valid for people to have valid critiques about their favorite show and to have a show and not just love everything about it.
Yeah,
that's normal. And we definitely alluded to this a lot during the Acolyte, but it is the way discourse and fake media outrage critiques have evolved in the Star Wars fandom has kind of put us in a weird corner where even like perfectly normal criticisms feel it sometimes feels weird expressing them because you don't want to be thrown into that label of, oh, well,
I'm not one of those people.
I'm not one of those people.
Exactly.
And I think we need to find the balance again of having critiques and still, like, even in episodes like these where I think the wide majority of people still really enjoy those episodes and can still find a way to enjoy it and offer these critiques without being like, oh, well, you just hate everything. Like, you hate Disney Star Wars. And it's just like, well, no, I was just like, hey, I just had this one tiny problem, man. Like,
exactly.
that's it. Like, and like, again, we need to have, like, again, like, I will use episode 9 as an example. That is a movie I have various problems with. However, I sometimes do not like discussing my problems with 9 or 8 because it lumps me in with the worst group of Star Wars fans.
Oh, exactly. 100%.
And my problems with Tross in particular stem from the fact that I love those characters so much that it not fully being what we were hoping for and wished, and then it does feel like such a mess at points and just a fusion of ideas that don't all really work and mesh well together. It just hurts, and I wish that we could find something, but then I'm also that one guy that doesn't like the Duel of the Fates script either, so I'm like, okay, well, what is the quote-unquote good version of episode 9 to me? Does it exist? Yeah. So, like, again, and like, there have been plenty of Star Wars projects where I have had problems with it, and I've expressed them, but again, sometimes I am getting to the point where I will even defend shows that I am not the biggest fans of because I don't want to fall in line with those. Like, when I see bad faith critiques of The Acolyte or Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett, even if it's things where there are certain parts of that show that I have issues with, I'm going to be like, well, no, because you're making this about something it shouldn't be about, and I need to fight back on that. Like, the people that were like, woke Disney Star Wars with the gay couple. Like, dude, they've been hinting at this for 3 fucking years.
Exactly.
Grow the fuck up.
Gay people exist. Get over it.
Exactly.
So, we've talked about the 2 big elephants in the room, really, for this arc. I think now we can, like, cut to the perhaps the best part of the episode, the way this arc chooses to close out.
Oh, yes.
We've been seeing him pop up in little dreams and nightmares, like, throughout the first couple of weeks. But yeah, this arc ends cutting away from, like, Kleya and Luthen leaving Mon Mothma's the party that Mon Mothma was also attending, to show the real Dr. Gorst walking through the Coruscant streets, presumably to the new facility that he was being transferred to from the ISB. He comes into his office, he puts down his little, like, snack that he'd presumably gone out to buy, and the lights come on, and who's standing behind him? It's fucking Bix. And I was like, oh, we're here. Oh my god, she's actually there with him. And here's the thing. I have been saying for, like, the last couple of years that if there's one thing I wanted Andor Season 2 to do, it was for Bix to get her revenge on that fucking Nazi twink. And my god, did she achieve her revenge here? Like, not just putting on, like, the torture machine. Well, sorry, I need to start again. I just took myself out. I have said numerous times that if there was one thing I wanted to see from Andor Season 2, it was that Bix get her revenge on that Nazi bastard. And my god, she did. Because, like, I immediately got excited, but when she strapped him into the chair and she took the device and put it on his head, I was like, oh, taste of your own medicine.
Yeah.
We're going there.
Word for word what he said to her in that moment.
Exactly. And I love that they have the note of her the note of him not knowing who she is, just to say to us, no, this is real. This is real, because of course he doesn't know who she is. He's tortured so many people with that horrific device of his that of course he wouldn't remember. But then she whispers that line in his ear, and you can see him hit the recognition go over his face just as she starts to mess with the machine, which again, she knows how to operate that thing. How many times must he have done that to her?
Going all the way back to Skeen in season 1, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. The one nugget of wisdom Skeen actually espoused, the bastard. But yeah, it's like, what a way to end the arc, man. Like, just
so good.
The build up, her pressing the button, the cutting out of the audio, that sustained shot of him just being absolutely just like,
and then her and Cassian walking away, and we get that shot from the trailer of them exploding in the background.
Oh, and
what an ending that was.
I have to give so many props to Nicholas Britell, because I thought he wasn't going to do any music for season 2, but he did a few select tracks, and the track he does that plays at the very end of that scene is titled "The Bix Is Back," which is like, round of applause for you, Nicholas. Very well done there, sir. Because that is such a fuck yeah moment. Like Bix popping the Imperial guards up. You're not supposed to be here. And like you said, her with Cassian, like setting off the explosion, and the little smile that goes across her face of just that closure. Not only that she got her. Yeah.
I hope everything I talked about earlier in this episode is wrong, and that this is just the beginning of badass rebel operative Bix Colleen.
Yeah, it's like Connor said last week. I hopefully when we see her next week, it's just all badass, no heartbreak. Please don't kill Bix.
Don't, please.
We've already had enough heartbreak already in this damn show.
Because I remember I was watching this episode, and I was just like, when all the cool stuff between Kleya and the stuff on Ghorman was going on, I was like, we haven't seen Cassian in like 20 minutes, and we know. Yeah. I feel like we know that scene from the trailer is in this episode, and I'm like, when is it happening? And then literally, it's the last scene, and what a scene to end on! Because you two had both seen the episode prior to me, and you were both like, "Oh, this ending is insane," and I'm like, "Oh, is it the Cinta stuff?" Because like, it's insane the way that I hate Tony Gilroy. But this was so goddamn cool, and like you said, I think it's my favorite ending of the entire series so far. It's definitely up there in terms of just a cathartic, just dopamine-inducing moment like that. Like, it was just pump your fist in the air, hell yeah kind of Star Wars moment that just, to me, put these episodes over the top. One thing I will say is that because I did watch these episodes on Thursday, I am so glad I didn't get spoiled by anything. I purposely stayed off Twitter because if I made the mistake of getting spoiled over Cinta dying like I did with Brasso, I would have turned into Bix at the end of that scene because it would have been bad. But this was such a great moment to end these episodes off with, getting that just beautiful moment of revenge for Bix. And you're like, oh, well, there's always been that problem. George Lucas, famously changed the title of Return of the Jedi because in his mind, a Jedi shouldn't seek revenge. But to steal a quote from Ahsoka, Bix is no Jedi. And this was a great moment to come full circle. And like I said, we hope that this is the beginning of a beautiful moment for the rest of the season for Bix, because she deserves it.
And her traumatized queen era is now ending. Hopefully,
it's over. Now she's in
badass rebel queen.
Rebel queen, indeed. And maybe this is exactly what Luthen and Cassian needed to get Bix fully, back and not struggling like she was. Is just hey, kill that evil fucking doctor, and also it stops Gor's torture machines from being distributed throughout the Empire because they blew up the whole facility. So that was awesome. Very excited for next week, where we're going to get our hearts ripped out from the Ghorman massacre. So that will be one hell of a arc to watch. This was
both excited for and dreading that arc in equal measure.
Absolutely. But we, I think, have talked long enough about these episodes, so we will start just a bit. So we will wrap things up here. Donovan, where can everyone find you before we head out today?
So you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, TikTok at Donovan McComish, Instagram at Donovan_McComish, Threads is the same, and Blue Sky you can find me at DonovanMcComish.bsky.social. I'm also a question writer for Star Wars Inner Galaxy Epic Confrontations, where various Star Wars fan personalities go head to head over their shared love of Star Wars trivia. We've got some fun matchups coming in the next couple of months. I have also written a Star Wars fan story that is out in the wild somewhere called Scars of War. I need to post an updated link to it. I'm going to get to it, but it's called Scars of War. I wrote it. It was launched back in 2022, and it follows a clone trooper called Blister who deserts the Empire after Order 66 and has his peaceful life on the planet of Kivo in the Outer Rim disturbed by a Jedi survivor named Shar Kun. If you like Star Wars and pain, consider giving it a read. It was a lot of fun to write.
Absolutely. As for myself, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can also find me on Blue Sky at starlightandrew.bsky.social. You can follow the pod on Twitter at For the Repub Pod and on Instagram and Twitter at For the Republic Pod. fortherepublicpod.bsky.social as well. We are doing our 100 to 100 campaign here on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to that. We're hoping to get to 100 subs before we hit 100 episodes. Last time I checked, we were 10 away. So I think we can do it. If we do hit that before we finish our Andor recaps, I have something fun planned. So I will let you guys know about that probably next week. Also, make sure to subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. It'll help support the show, and we thank you very much for that. We will be back for our coverage of the next arc of Andor next week. We will eventually get to Tales of the Underworld. I know that drops in a couple hours, but we're going to figure out how to do that while we're covering Andor, so we might wait until Andor Season 2 is done before we cover it, but we will get to it eventually, and we have a fun guest plan for that one as well. If you know anything about Asajj Ventress, you know who we're talking about. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week, and until next time, may the Force be with you.